Andrius Kubilius, ex-Lithuanian Prime Minister, acting European Commissioner for Defence in Air and Space, with us tonight. Good afternoon, Mr. Kubilius.
Good afternoon.
My first question, Trump plays a Ronald Reagan of sorts, if you ask me, and declares that he can create a new air and space defense system based on the example of the Strategic Defense Initiative. You remember, space and everything. To what extent it is even technically possible, or better asked, and most importantly, is it justified?
Well, space, of course, is playing an important role in defense, even now. And the European Union is quite strong also in using space installations, space programs, and space services for defense. I can just remind you that in so-called Galileo installation, which is European Union space installation, is providing the best worldwide service on positioning, on so-called GPS service. Copernicus is giving the best data on Earth observation, which is also used by defense and security forces. Now EU is moving ahead with so-called IRIS Square project, which will give very good and secure satellite communication services. So all those programs are very important for modern defense. And I don't know what new administration of United States will do. Of course, we can see that Elon Musk, very well-known businessman who is developing very important projects for the future of space exploration, that he is quite close to President Donald Tusk. So, of course, perhaps he will bring some new ideas, some new ambitious projects. But the European Union will be not far away from all those developments.
All right, I'll take that as an answer. But is it possible, just yes or no, to use all these constellations of Copernicus and Galileo as a weapon? Is that right? For defense, but as a weapon of assault. Is that possible?
It's, of course, those are, we can call those installations as weapons of intelligence, of information, which are very much needed for, today's defense capabilities. I don't know what, President Donald Trump is speaking about, what kind of, new projects for space he is going to develop, but we should be very careful if space will start to be used as some kind of weaponized instrument for military operations, then definitely there can be very, very challenging consequences. Even now, we see that Russians and Chinese are showing some kind of their plans to use different instruments to attack our space installations. And that is why defense of space is becoming very important next stage of our development, which we need to take care. Because if our adversaries or enemies will be able to destroy our space installations, then definitely both our civilian life and our defense capabilities will be hit very heavily.
Sure. Another question more or less related to that. Western components are found in each and every Russian missile, even in that missile that recently murdered a family in Kryvyi Rih, pardon me. So yet we have to beg, let's put it that way, the West to let us strike back deep into Russia territory, because Storm Shadows has...
very difficult to hear you. Something wrong with the voice, something wrong with the sound.
Can
you repeat a little bit
louder?
Yeah,
sure, I can repeat. So every Russian missile has a Western component in it. We then have to beg the West, because to use the Western long-range missiles because, like Storm Shadow, has American components in it. So can you please comment on this absurd situation, please, if you can?
Well, those are two perhaps not very much related topics.
Really?
One thing is how sanctions are implemented and how Russians are finding the way how to overcome those sanctions, how to use different loopholes, how to use third countries in order to get access to some kind of modern technologies. And second is what to do with the weapons which are given to Ukraine, and where different countries are using their possibility to bring some kind of restrictions, no strings attached, and they are not allowing to use those weapons which were provided for Ukraine in a proper way. So I am, of that position that Ukraine needs to have all the capabilities
Right.
to defend themselves, and imposing any kind of restrictions on Ukraine not to use long distance missiles or not to create possibilities for Ukraine to hit targets somewhere in Russian territory is a mistake, because Russia understands such kind of restrictions as our fear of so-called Russian, escalation. But Russia is escalating, despite the fact that, some countries like United States till now were not allowing to use long-distance missiles. They're bringing, troops from North Korea. And this is the biggest escalation, what we are facing. So the question is why we are still keeping some kind of restrictions on our side when Russia, nevertheless, is escalating full scale. All their efforts to attack Ukraine.
Yeah, this is
our responses to Ukraine, to Russian attacks should be, exactly giving opportunity for Ukrainians to defend themselves and to defend us in a proper way. You cannot fight when your hands are in some way, tied behind you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I couldn't agree to that more than that. I agree with you, but I disagree when you say that these topics are unrelated. But this is the topics, of the components in the Russian missiles and the missiles that we craving to deter Russian aggression. But let me slide to other question. Do you believe, Mr. Kubelis, that Macron and Starmer are able to manage to convince Biden to give permission finally for that long-range strikes after all? Do you think this is even possible?
Well, I don't know, what will be the new administration thinking about. Those names which now are appearing like, future state secretary or future advisor to national security are the people from United States Congress, which we know who are strong in fighting against any kind of authoritarian regimes. Either against Chinese, attempts to become military aggressive or against, Russian aggression against Ukraine. So I hope that they will be really decisive in assisting Ukraine to be as powerful as Ukraine can be when Ukraine is getting, those weapons like long distance missiles. Ukraine needs to have a very, very simple permission to use those weapons. So it's quite strange that, Ukraine is getting some of those long distance missiles, but then they are restricted to use those missiles in full force, in full power. I hope that, at the end, especially when we see how Russian side is escalating their war efforts against Ukraine, bringing troops from North Korea, that the West will become much more decisive and effective in helping Ukraine to withstand such kind of escalation from Russian side.
Amen to that. We really hope that Biden or Trump will finally make the decision that will help us to use the weapons that we actually already possess. Thank you so very much for your time. Hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Andrius Kubilius, ex-Lithuanian Prime Minister, acting European Commissioner for Defence and Air and Space, with us at UATV English.